Mumbai. A city of dreams, where fortunes are made and lives are broken. It is the 1970s, a time of change, a time of crime. Beneath the glitz of Bollywood and the rush of the stock exchange, another world exists. A world of smugglers, gangsters, and corrupt officials. It is here, in the crowded lanes of Dongri, that a young man begins his journey into the underworld. His name is Dawood Ibrahim Kaskar. The son of a police constable, born into a large family, raised in poverty. Unlike his father, who swore to uphold the law, Dawood chooses a different path. A path paved with crime, deception, and power. As a teenager, Dawood drifts towards the gangs that control Mumbai's underbelly. At the time, the city's underworld is ruled by the notorious Haji Mastan, Karim Lala, and Varadarajan Mudaliar, smugglers who bring in gold, electronics, and drugs through Mumbai's ports. These men operate like kings, untouchable, feared by the police, and admired by the poor. But Dawood is not content to be a mere follower. He is ambitious, ruthless, and intelligent. He starts small, pickpocketing, petty thefts, running errands for the local dons. Soon, he joins a gang known as the Pathan gang, led by men who have ruled the streets for years. But Dawood is different. He is not just a street thug. He understands money, power, and fear, and he is willing to do what others will not. His first major test comes in the late 1970s. A dispute erupts between the Pathan gang and another rising force, the DCompany, a breakaway faction led by Dawood himself. What begins as a struggle for territory soon turns into an all-out war. Blood is spilled in the streets of Mumbai. Shootings in broad daylight, gang members gunned down in crowded markets, police struggling to contain the chaos. And in the middle of it all, Dawood. By the early 1980s, the balance of power has shifted. The old dons, Haji Mastan, Karim Lala, begin to fade. Some retire, some flee. Dawood seizes the opportunity. He takes control of Mumbai's most lucrative trade, smuggling. At a time when India's economy is still closed to the world, foreign goods, gold, watches, liquor, electronics are worth a fortune, and Dawood controls the supply. But smuggling is only the beginning. Soon, he moves into extortion, betting, contract killings. His influence spreads across Mumbai, reaching into the police, the judiciary, even politics. Cops who once hunted him now take his money. Businessmen who once feared him now seek his protection. Bollywood stars attend his parties. He is no longer just a gangster. He is the gangster, the undisputed king of Mumbai's underworld. And yet, this is only the beginning. Because Dawood Ibrahim is not just a criminal, he is a man with a vision. And his ambitions go far beyond the streets of Mumbai. He wants power, absolute power, and he will do whatever it takes to get it. By the early 1980s, Mumbai belongs to Dawood Ibrahim. His word is law. His name is whispered in fear. From the bustling markets of Crawford to the neon-lit streets of Juhu, his empire stretches across the city like an invisible hand, controlling everything. Smuggling, extortion, contract killings. His gang, DCompany, is no longer a mere criminal outfit. It is an institution. A network of men, money, and murder that operates with military precision. His lieutenants, Chota Rajan, Chota Shakil, and others enforce his rule. His enemies disappear overnight. The police, many are on his payroll. The courts, they do not dare touch him. Even politicians seek his favor. But Dawood is not just another gangster. He is a visionary. While his rivals think in terms of streets and neighborhoods, he thinks in terms of nations. He does not want to rule just Mumbai. He wants to rule the underworld itself. And he knows that to do that, he must expand beyond India. By the mid-1980s, Dawood moves his base of operations to Dubai. The glitzy city offers something Mumbai never could: protection from the law and a gateway to global crime networks. From Dubai, he builds ties with Pakistan's Inner Services Intelligence ISI, the Afghan drug lords, and the Colombian cocaine cartels. His business shifts from gold smuggling to narcotics trafficking. The profits are staggering. Dawood's drug trade floods Europe, the Middle East, and even the United States. Heroin, refined in Afghanistan's poppy fields, is smuggled through Pakistan and into India, where it is shipped to international markets. The profits are laundered through businesses in Dubai and Singapore. With each passing year, his fortune grows. Estimated to be in the billions, but money alone does not satisfy him. He craves power, influence, respect, and nowhere is that influence more visible than in Bollywood. For years, Mumbai's film industry has been a playground for the underworld. Actors, directors, and producers operate under the shadow of crime bosses, taking money for films, fixing box office results, even laundering black money. But with Dawood, things change. He does not just invest in Bollywood, he owns it. Big-budget films are financed with his money. Top stars attend his extravagant Dubai parties, some out of fear, others out of greed. There are whispers of threats, disappearances, even murders. Those who refuse to comply find themselves at the wrong end of a gun. Bollywood is no longer just entertainment. It is a weapon, a tool to control minds, shape narratives, and clean dirty money. By the late 1980s, Dawood's power is absolute. He is no longer just an Indian criminal. He is a global fugitive. He has links with terrorist groups, arms dealers, and intelligence agencies. He is a man without borders, beyond the reach of law enforcement. And yet, even as he basks in his power, something begins to change. Back in India, the city he once ruled is slipping away. Rival gangs are rising. His name is being whispered not with reverence, but with rebellion. And in December 1992, an event takes place that will change the course of history. An event that will turn Dawood Ibrahim from a crime lord into a terrorist. The Babri Masjid is demolished. And in the months that follow, Mumbai burns. Dawood watches from Dubai. And in that moment, he makes a decision. He will strike back, and his revenge will be written in blood. December 6, 1992. In the city of Ayodhya, a mob of Hindu nationalists demolishes the Babri Masjid, a centuries-old mosque that has long been at the center of religious tensions in India. News spreads like wildfire. Across the country, Hindu-Muslim riots erupt, but nowhere is the violence more brutal than in Mumbai. For weeks, the city burns. Streets, once bustling with life, are now filled with smoke and the stench of death. Mobs roam the streets, setting fire to homes, looting shops, murdering families. Muslim neighborhoods become battlegrounds. The police, overwhelmed and accused of siding with the mobs, fail to contain the bloodshed. By the time the violence ends in January 1993, over 900 people are dead. Most of them Muslims. Thousands more are injured. Businesses are destroyed, families shattered. The city of Mumbai, once a melting pot of cultures, is now divided by fear, anger, and grief. But in Dubai, one man watches in silence. Dawood Ibrahim. To the world, he is a crime lord, a smuggler, a kingpin. But in that moment, he sees himself as something else. A man wronged. A man whose people have been butchered. And in the underworld, there is only one response to betrayal: revenge. But Dawood does not act in haste. He is not a street thug, seeking vengeance with a gun. He is a strategist, a man who understands power, influence, and patience. And so, even as Mumbai picks up the pieces, he begins to plan something far more devastating than the riots. Something that will shake the nation to its core. Something that will make India bleed. In the months that follow, Dawood's men begin making contacts with Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI. The agency, already engaged in a shadow war against India, sees an opportunity. They provide him with resources, funding, and, most importantly, explosives. The weapon of choice, RDX. A military-grade explosive smuggled into India through the porous coastline of Gujarat and Maharashtra. It is unlike anything Mumbai has seen before. More powerful than gunpowder, more destructive than grenades. It is the same explosive used in high-profile terrorist attacks around the world. But Dawood does not work alone. He enlists his trusted lieutenants, Tiger Memon, Yaqub Memon, and a network of trained operatives. They scout locations, identify weak points in the city's infrastructure, and carefully plan a coordinated attack. The targets are chosen for maximum impact: the Bombay Stock Exchange, luxury hotels, bustling markets, and government buildings. The bombers are not just criminals. Many of them are ordinary men, shopkeepers, mechanics, traders, who have lost their families in the riots. They are fueled by grief, driven by vengeance, and manipulated into believing they are striking back for their community. As the days turn into weeks, everything is set. The bombs are ready, the men are trained, the plan is in motion. Dawood Ibrahim, once a kingpin of crime, is now something else, a terrorist. And on March 12, 1993, Mumbai will learn the true cost of his vengeance. Because on that day, in the span of just 2 hours, the city will be torn apart by the deadliest bombings in India's history. And the name Dawood Ibrahim will forever be etched in blood. March 12, 1993. A Friday like any other. Mumbai wakes up to its usual chaos. Office workers rushing to the trains, street vendors setting up stalls, businessmen checking stock prices. The city, still recovering from the wounds of the 1992 riots, is trying to move on. No one knows that in a few hours, everything will change. 1:30 p.m., Bombay Stock Exchange. A powerful explosion rips through the Bombay Stock Exchange building on Dalal Street. The ground shakes, glass shatters, a cloud of smoke and dust engulfs the street as flames rise from the 28-story building. 50 people die instantly. Hundreds are injured. Panic spreads through the financial district. People scream, run, collapse in the streets, covered in blood and dust. But this is just the beginning. 1:50 p.m., Katha Bazaar. A second bomb explodes at Katha Bazaar, a crowded marketplace. The force of the blast is so strong that it sends debris flying hundreds of meters away. The air smells of burning flesh. Bodies lie scattered among broken fruit stalls and burning rickshaws. The injured cry out for help, but there is no one to hear them. 2:05 p.m., Zaveri Bazaar. Another explosion. Zaveri Bazaar, the heart of Mumbai's jewelry trade, turns into a scene from hell. Shop windows shatter. Gold, once a symbol of wealth, is now covered in blood. People are trapped under the rubble, their screams drowned by the sirens of ambulances trying to navigate the chaos. 2:15 p.m. Plaza Cinema. A fourth blast tears through Plaza Cinema in Dadar, a place where families and friends gather for entertainment. The explosion shreds seats, blows the roof apart, and kills dozens in an instant. What was supposed to be an afternoon escape turns into a death trap. 2:30 p.m., Sea Rock Hotel and other locations. The bombings continue. Sea Rock Hotel, Air India Building, Century Bazaar, Worli, and several other locations. The entire city is under siege, but there is no enemy in sight, only fire, destruction, and an overwhelming sense of fear. Mumbai has never seen anything like this before. By the time the final bomb explodes, 257 people are dead. Over 1,400 are injured. The attack is the deadliest coordinated bombing in India's history. The city that never sleeps is now a city in mourning. But who is behind this massacre? As the fires burn and rescue teams dig through the rubble, intelligence agencies piece together the horrifying truth. This is not a random attack. It is a carefully orchestrated act of revenge. A message written in blood. And at the center of it all is Dawood Ibrahim. From his safe house in Dubai, he watches as news channels flash images of destruction. He does not flinch. He does not mourn. To him, this is not terror. This is retribution. But he has made a mistake. Because now, for the first time, Dawood Ibrahim is not just a gangster. He is India's most wanted man. And the hunt for him has begun. March 12, 1993. The bombings have ended, but the horror has just begun. Mumbai is unrecognizable. Streets once filled with life are now covered in ash and blood. The wounded overwhelm hospitals. Families search through the rubble, hoping to find their loved ones, some alive, many dead. The air carries the sound of sirens, the cries of the grieving, and the endless questions of a shattered nation. Who did this? And why? The Indian government moves swiftly. Within hours, intelligence agencies, the Mumbai Police and the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, launched the largest manhunt in the country's history. Investigators sift through evidence, interview survivors, and analyze security footage. And one name keeps coming up: Dawood Ibrahim. To some, he was just a smuggler, a crime boss who controlled Mumbai's underworld. But now, the truth is undeniable. This was not just an act of organized crime, it was an act of terrorism. Eyewitnesses and arrested suspects revealed chilling details. The attacks were planned months in advance. Dawood's right-hand man, Tiger Memon, was deeply involved. His own house in Mahim was used as a bomb factory. Vehicles packed with explosives were smuggled in from across the border. The operatives were trained in Pakistan, funded by DCompany, and guided by Pakistan's ISI. The CBI confirms the worst: Dawood Ibrahim was not just a criminal anymore. He was a terrorist with international support. The political fallout. The Indian government is under pressure. The people demand justice. Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao calls for immediate action. Arrests begin across Mumbai. Hundreds of suspects, including businessmen, police officers, and Bollywood figures with links to Dawood, are taken into custody. But there is one problem. Dawood Ibrahim is nowhere to be found. The Great Escape. Long before the first bomb exploded, Dawood had already fled India. He knew what was coming. Weeks before the attack, he boarded a flight to Dubai, where his empire remained untouched. From his mansion in the UAE, he watched as his enemies burned. But Dubai is no longer safe. Under international pressure, the UAE government begins considering action against him. Dawood cannot afford to stay, and so in the dead of night, he disappears again, this time to Karachi, Pakistan. Pakistan's denial. When India demands his extradition, Pakistan denies his presence. But intelligence reports tell a different story. Dawood is given a new identity, new documents, and full protection. His criminal empire flourishes under Pakistani intelligence, funding global drug trafficking, match fixing, and terrorist operations. From Karachi, he continues to control DCompany, expands into the heroin trade, and funds extremist groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba. Even as India tightens its grip on his allies, he remains out of reach, a ghost protected by a state. The most wanted man years pass. The wounds of Mumbai remain open. Dawood Ibrahim's face is now plastered on Interpol's most wanted list. The United States Treasury Department declares him a global terrorist, linking him to Al-Qaeda. His assets in Dubai, the UK, and India are seized. Yet he remains free. Living under protection in Pakistan, he becomes a symbol of India's unfinished war on terror. Governments come and go, but the question remains the same. Will India ever bring Dawood Ibrahim to justice? And as the years pass, one terrifying reality becomes clear. The man who made Mumbai bleed is still out there, still untouchable, still dangerous. But justice has a long memory, and no one runs forever. Dawood Ibrahim is no longer just an Indian fugitive. He is a global crime lord. From the shadows of Karachi, he controls a multi-billion-dollar empire, his influence reaching far beyond the slums of Mumbai. His name is whispered in the criminal underworld across Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and even Europe. The 1993 Mumbai bombings have made him a wanted man, but they have not weakened him. If anything, they have elevated him. With the Indian government cracking down on his operations back home, Dawood shifts his focus. He expands his network into drug trafficking, arms smuggling, extortion, and money laundering. And at the heart of it all is his criminal syndicate, DCompany. The heroin trade. If Mumbai was the foundation of Dawood's empire, heroin is the fuel that keeps it running. His connections with Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence (ISI) and Afghan warlords give him direct access to the world's largest heroin supply, the Golden Crescent. From Afghanistan's poppy fields, the raw opium is refined into pure heroin in secret laboratories along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. From there, it is smuggled across the world. Dawood's drug routes stretch from Pakistan to India, from Dubai to Africa, from Europe to the United States. The profits? Staggering. His network pumps tons of heroin into global markets each year. The streets of London, New York, and Bangkok are flooded with his product. His lieutenants handle distribution using corrupt customs officials, cargo ships, and underground banking systems to launder millions. And through it all, Pakistan provides him safe haven. In return, he funds terrorist activities, aiding groups that serve Pakistan's geopolitical interests. Dawood Ibrahim is no longer just an Indian fugitive. He is a global crime lord. From the shadows of Karachi, he controls a multi-billion-dollar empire, his influence reaching far beyond the slums of Mumbai. His name is whispered in the criminal underworld across Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and even Europe. The 1993 Mumbai bombings have made him a wanted man, but they have not weakened him. If anything, they have elevated him. With the Indian government cracking down on his operations back home, Dawood shifts his focus. He expands his network into drug trafficking, arms smuggling, extortion, and money laundering. And at the heart of it all is his criminal syndicate, DCompany. The heroin trade. If Mumbai was the foundation of Dawood's empire, heroin is the fuel that keeps it running. His connections with Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence (ISI) and Afghan warlords give him direct access to the world's largest heroin supply, the Golden Crescent. From Afghanistan's poppy fields, the raw opium is refined into pure heroin in secret laboratories along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. From there, it is smuggled across the world. Dawood's drug routes stretch from Pakistan to India, from Dubai to Africa, from Europe to the United States. The profits? Staggering. His network pumps tons of heroin into global markets each year. The streets of London, New York, and Bangkok are flooded with his product. His lieutenants handle distribution, using corrupt customs officials, cargo ships, and underground banking systems to launder millions. And through it all, Pakistan provides him safe haven. In return, he funds terrorist activities, aiding groups that serve Pakistan's geopolitical interests. Dawood is no longer just a criminal. He is a state asset, protected at the highest levels, the blood money of match fixing. Even as Dawood builds his global narcotics empire, he finds another gold mine: cricket. Cricket is India's religion, and Dawood understands the power of obsession. By the late 1990s, he infiltrates the world of match fixing and illegal betting, using his money to buy players, rig matches, and control the game's outcome. His influence over cricket spreads to Pakistan, South Africa, the UK, and even Australia. Players, coaches, and officials fall into his web, lured by the promise of easy millions. The scandal explodes in 2000 when Delhi police intercept a call between South African captain Hansi Kranja and a bookie linked to Dawood. The revelations shake the cricketing world. Dawood's name is everywhere, yet he remains untouchable. DCompany's deadly reach. Even as he hides in Karachi, Dawood's hand reaches across continents. His gang launders billions through Dubai's real estate market, owns legitimate businesses in the UK, Africa, and Malaysia, and operates weapons smuggling routes into India and the Middle East. His organization works like a government of its own, complete with ministers, advisors, and executioners. His trusted men, Chota Shakil, Iqbal Mirchi, and Anis Ibrahim, oversee operations from different parts of the world. And yet, despite Interpol red notices, intelligence leaks, and diplomatic pressure, Dawood continues to live freely in Pakistan. In Karachi, he enjoys a life of untouchable luxury: multiple mansions, bulletproof cars, high-level security provided by Pakistani intelligence. He moves carefully, never using phones, never staying in one place for too long. His legend only grows. Some say he has plastic surgery to alter his appearance. Others claim he moves between Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad under military escort. But there is one undeniable truth. He is still in power. He is still dangerous, and he is still beyond India's reach. A growing international threat. By the early 2000s, the world begins to recognize Dawood Ibrahim for what he truly is, not just a criminal mastermind, but a terrorist financier. In 2003, the United States Treasury Department officially declares him a global terrorist, linking him to Al-Qaeda. His assets in the UAE, UK, and India are frozen. The Indian government increases diplomatic efforts to bring him back. Yet Pakistan continues to deny his existence on their soil. For nearly 3 decades, India has been hunting Dawood Ibrahim, but justice is still out of reach. And in the shadows, the king of the underworld still reigns. For decades, India has been hunting Dawood Ibrahim. Governments have changed, intelligence agencies have evolved, yet the man responsible for the worst terrorist attack in India's history remains free. The question is why? It is not for a lack of effort. India has tried, again and again. From diplomatic pressure to covert operations, the Indian government has used every method possible to bring him back, but every attempt has failed. Because Dawood Ibrahim is not just another fugitive, he is a protected asset, a ghost shielded by the state of Pakistan. Operation Desert Chase, the Dubai Plan, 1994. A year after the 1993 Mumbai bombings, Indian intelligence agencies uncovered Dawood's location. He is in Dubai, living in luxury. This is India's chance. A covert team is assembled. The plan? A snatch-and-grab operation. The goal? Extract Dawood and bring him back to India. But before the operation can even begin, the plan is leaked. Someone, perhaps within the Indian government itself, tips off Dawood. And just like that, he vanishes. Days later, intelligence reports confirm the worst. Dawood has fled Dubai and arrived in Karachi, Pakistan. The window is closed, the opportunity is lost, and now he is in a country where no one can touch him. Diplomatic efforts, dead ends, and denials. For years, India puts relentless diplomatic pressure on Pakistan to hand over Dawood. The evidence is overwhelming. Phone intercepts, satellite images, financial records, all pointing to his presence in Karachi. Yet, Pakistan denies everything. They say he is not in the country, that India has no proof. But behind closed doors, intelligence agencies know the truth. Dawood is being protected by Pakistan's ISI. He is a valuable asset, his network useful for covert operations, drug trafficking, and funding terrorist groups. Pakistan will never give him up. The 2005 US CIA proposal, a joint operation. In 2005, a bold new plan emerges. The CIA and RAW, India's intelligence agency, discuss a potential joint operation to eliminate Dawood Ibrahim. The strategy? A drone strike. US intelligence confirms that Dawood is in Karachi. If the operation is approved, a targeted missile strike will take him out, just like Osama bin Laden years later. But before the plan can move forward, diplomatic tensions rise. Pakistan issues a warning. Any such attack on their soil would be considered an act of war. The mission is called off. Dawood lives. Covert assassination attempts, close calls, no success. Over the years, India has tried other ways. There have been multiple assassination attempts, some by rival gangsters, others by Indian intelligence operatives working in secret. But Dawood is always one step ahead. His Karachi mansion is heavily guarded. His movements are unpredictable. He never stays in one place for long. He doesn't use cell phones. His security detail is provided by Pakistani intelligence. And each time someone gets close, Dawood disappears into the shadows. 2015. The Mumbai police try again. In 2015, a secret team of Mumbai police officers is formed. Their mission? Track down and assassinate Dawood. They use informants. They study his financial transactions. They pinpoint his safe houses in Karachi's Clifton district. But before they can act, the plan is shut down at the highest levels. Why? Because taking out Dawood is not just an intelligence decision, it's a political one. India cannot risk a direct confrontation with Pakistan, not without consequences. Why hasn't India killed Dawood yet? The truth is harsh. Dawood Ibrahim is not just an underworld don anymore. He is a geopolitical weapon. Pakistan needs him. His criminal empire funds terror groups that serve their interests. His drug network brings in billions. His deep connections with global mafias make him invaluable. For Pakistan, Dawood is not a liability, he is an asset. For India, he is a nightmare that won't end. And so, the most wanted man in India remains free, living in Karachi under state protection. His business thrives, his power remains intact. And the families of the 257 victims of the Mumbai bombings are left with only one question. Will Dawood Ibrahim ever face justice? Or will he die a free man? Decades have passed since the 1993 Mumbai bombings, but the ghost of Dawood Ibrahim still lingers. His name is no longer just a part of India's underworld. It is a symbol of unfinished justice, a reminder of power without consequence. And though he may no longer roam the streets of Mumbai, his presence is felt in every corner of the underworld. Even today, Dawood's empire remains intact. His networks continue to operate, his businesses continue to make millions, and his influence stretches from Pakistan to the Middle East, from India to Africa, and even into Western financial markets. The world may have changed, but DCompany still thrives. Dawood's safe haven in Pakistan. For years, Pakistan has denied Dawood's presence on its soil, but the evidence tells a different story. Satellite images confirm his Karachi residence. Intercepts from intelligence agencies pick up his conversations. Financial records show his businesses operating out of Dubai, Malaysia, South Africa, and the UK. He is no longer just a fugitive. He is a protected entity, living under government security in Pakistan. And every attempt to bring him to justice ends in diplomatic deadlock. DCompany's expanding business empire. Dawood's network has evolved. Where once he ruled Mumbai's streets, now he controls an empire without borders. His organization, DCompany, no longer operates like a mere gang. It functions like a multinational corporation of crime. Drug trafficking. He continues to run one of the largest heroin smuggling operations in the world, with links to Afghan drug lords and South American cartels. Money laundering. His real estate empire in Dubai serves as a laundering hub for dirty money, with investments in hotels, shopping malls, and offshore accounts. Terror financing. His wealth is funneled into terrorist organizations, funding groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Al-Qaeda affiliates. Illegal arms trade. His syndicate supplies weapons to criminal organizations and extremist groups, ensuring a steady flow of arms into India, the Middle East, and Africa. Match-fixing and betting syndicates. His influence in international cricket remains strong, with continued control over illegal betting operations across the world. The Indian government's frustration. Despite mounting evidence, India's hands remain tied. Diplomatic efforts have failed. Intelligence operations have been thwarted, and assassination attempts have been blocked by international politics. Even the United Nations and the United States have designated Dawood Ibrahim as a global terrorist, yet Pakistan continues to shield him. In 2020, after years of denial, Pakistan was forced to admit that Dawood is in Karachi, but even then, no action was taken. The legacy of terror. Dawood's influence has not just shaped the underworld, it has shaped modern terrorism. His money has financed groups responsible for attacks on Indian soil, in Afghanistan, and beyond. His weapons have fueled conflicts that have claimed thousands of lives. And yet, he remains a free man, living in luxury while the families of his victims still seek justice. The unfinished hunt. India has not forgotten. New intelligence agencies, modern surveillance, and covert operations continue to track his every move. Dawood is now old, but his empire lives on. His lieutenants and family members are being targeted, his financial networks are being disrupted, and his underworld alliances are weakening. The hunt is not over. And as history has proven time and time again, even the most powerful criminals eventually fall. Dawood Ibrahim has spent decades running, but how much longer can he hide? For decades, Dawood Ibrahim ruled the underworld with fear, wealth, and political protection. He built an empire that stretched across continents, laundering billions of dollars, smuggling tons of narcotics, and funding terrorist operations. But no empire lasts forever. And now, after nearly 4 decades of dominance, the cracks in DCompany are beginning to show. The global crackdown. Governments across the world have finally begun dismantling Dawood's vast network. His trusted allies have turned against him, his financial operations are being exposed, and his safe havens are shrinking. 2013, Iqbal Mirchi's arrest and death. One of Dawood's most trusted lieutenants, Iqbal Mirchi, ran his money laundering operations in the UK and Dubai. But when British authorities froze his assets, Mirchi found himself cornered. He fled to Spain, only to die under mysterious circumstances in 2013. His death was the first major crack in Dawood's financial empire. 2015, Chota Rajan's capture. Chota Rajan, once Dawood's closest ally, turned into his greatest enemy. After falling out in the mid-1990s, Rajan spent decades waging a war against DCompany, assassinating key members of the syndicate. But in 2015, Indian authorities finally tracked him down in Bali, Indonesia, and extradited him to India. His capture was a symbolic blow to Dawood's operations. 2020, Pakistan admits Dawood's presence. After years of denial, Pakistan was finally forced to admit that Dawood was living in Karachi. This revelation came as Pakistan faced increasing pressure from global anti-terror agencies. For the first time, the world saw official proof of Pakistan's involvement in sheltering him. 2022, sanctions and asset seizures. In 2022, the United Arab Emirates, United States, and United Nations placed fresh sanctions on Dawood's businesses. His real estate holdings in Dubai were frozen, his shell companies were dismantled, and his drug routes were under constant surveillance. The financial chokehold was tightening. The internal power struggles. As the global crackdown intensified, Dawood's inner circle began to fracture. His brother, Anis Ibrahim, was once a loyal lieutenant, but power struggles between factions within DCompany weakened their influence. In Dubai, Malaysia, and Africa, his operations were being taken over by rival criminal syndicates. Even within Pakistan, Dawood was no longer as powerful as before. The ISI, which once shielded him, began shifting focus to newer criminal allies and extremist groups. For the first time, Dawood was losing control. A life of fear and isolation. Dawood Ibrahim, once Mumbai's untouchable kingpin, now lives like a prisoner in his own empire. His movements are restricted. He no longer trusts his own men. His security is tighter than ever, but even that cannot protect him from betrayal, global pressure, and old enemies. The world around him is changing, and the legend of Dawood Ibrahim is fading. But one question remains: will he die a fugitive? Or will justice finally catch up with him? For over 4 decades, Dawood Ibrahim has lived above the law. A man who orchestrated mass murder, built a criminal empire, and evaded justice. But even the most powerful fugitives cannot run forever. The cracks in DCompany are widening. His businesses are collapsing, his allies are vanishing, and his own men are turning against him. The world is closing in. The inevitable fall history has shown that no underworld kingpin dies peacefully. Pablo Escobar, once the richest drug lord in the world, was gunned down on a rooftop in Colombia. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of global terror, was eliminated in a secret raid in Pakistan. El Chapo, the Mexican cartel leader, was captured and sentenced to life in prison. Dawood knows this. He understands that he is not invincible. For now, he remains in hiding, protected by powerful forces. But the question is not if he will fall, it's when. Will Dawood face justice? India's intelligence agencies continue their hunt. Global anti-terror organizations tighten the noose. His enemies grow bolder. Dawood Ibrahim may die in exile, or he may one day stand trial for the countless lives he has destroyed. But make no mistake, his time is running out. The shadow of Dawood Ibrahim will one day fade into history. And when that day comes, the world will finally see justice served. The final question. What do you think? Will Dawood Ibrahim be captured, or will he escape justice forever? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more deep dives into the most notorious criminals in history, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications.